Hello, Narnach here. Welcome back to Grim Dawn. Last episode we spent some time poking around in a secret quest in Act 1 and we made our way to the first waypoint of Act 2. So this episode we're gonna continue with that, but I do want to correct on something I mentioned towards the towards the end of the episode. And that is the enchanted flint and the cold stone that I was debating the merits of. You can't actually use them with guns, they can only be used with melee weapons, with shields and with caster offhand. Guns are neither of those, so they go back in the stash and instead I ended up using Hellsbane ammo. And I discovered you can use two different Hellsbane ammos. Yes, for demonstration purposes here, there's a Hellsbane in both. And you get an aura from both of the weapons and you can stack them for as far as I can tell. Okay, to demonstrate, our DPS is now 565. If I take one off, it's 433. If I take another off, it's a 35. So we end up increasing our damage by nearly 2/3 by just equipping both of the auras. And the nice thing about the Hellsbane's ammo is of course the stun chance, and it looks like we're gonna stack that. So with that said, let's move over to Act 2 and try to make our way towards Old Arkovia waypoint. So as you might notice, at least it feels that way, I sound a little funny. And you might have noticed that it's been about 5 days since the last video. Reason for that is that I caught a cold. So I've been out for most of the weekend in a bit of a fever days, which is always wonderful. So that means I can't really get much more productive done than sleeping and sitting on the couch just watching some Netflix and then back to some sleeping. But I'm feeling better now. Usually after a cold like that I end up with a very sore throat and a lot of coughing. Seems this time I have been spared, or the new secret weapon of fresh ginger tea is working the way I hoped it would. So I'm feeling good enough again that I feel pretty confident. Maybe I should actually switch to the other bar. That I feel confident to start making videos again, and I hope I won't break into a coughing fit halfway through the video. Just in case, I'll just take a sip every couple of minutes, just to make sure, or at least to do my best to prevent that. So, we're making pretty decent progress. And I did a little bit of warming up just to get a feel again for the character, and it is fun to play. It is definitely not an overpowered way to play a character like this. But I get a sense of enjoyment out of it, and I think that's the most important part. And doing some hit and run tactics for a change is surprisingly interesting. With the addition of the Hellsbane ammo ×2, our damage went up. Last episode we also focused a little bit on scaling some of our procs and things like that, so we do a little bit more AoE, and that seems to have paid off as well. And the upgrade that makes the fire mine explode first and then trigger the projectiles, it is pretty nice. Okay, so we got ourselves the dynamite that we were here for. So let's just exit this place. Put some traps down and they fell for it. It's interesting, they're flying. You would not expect them to trigger a trap, but well, they're not traps, they're runes, and of course runes are magical. And if they're magical, then you can explain away everything. So now usually I do have a buffer of videos that I have pre-recorded for a couple of days. So now if I get sick or something, then I do have a buffer of a couple of videos that usually just helps me carry over. Well, in this case, last week I went to a training course, 2-day training course. So I had actually just used my buffer for that one. Training courses are pretty intense. So yeah, the cold just straight after that didn't really help. But as I said, I'm feeling better now, so we should be able to just go back to the normal pace of at least one video per day. And I think I'm gonna mostly stick to the one video per day thing for the foreseeable future, given how busy I've been offline as well. Especially now, you know, I've been out of the running for a little bit, so also needed to catch up on a little bit of work, which usually means my days are a bit more busy than usual. So we're currently looking for the Elder, the missing Elder, who has a necklace that we need to bring back. Spoiler alert, the Elder is not doing very well. So we're playing in the new patch. That's something that's also, it launched over the weekend, so it kind of went by me for a little bit. Also, upgrade. Let's spend some skill points. Let's see, 2 points to advance our bar, and then 1 point into a useful upgrade somewhere. Let's see, we put a couple points into the bursting rounds just to increase the area, so when they trigger, they do trigger. And I think I'm just gonna continue it. I think I'm actually just gonna max bursting rounds, since having a large area on it seems to be pretty darn nice for so far. But no, I was talking about the patch, the 1.3 patch. A lot of changes. It's a pretty massive patch, as is often the case with large patches. A lot of it is due to changes in itemization, because they do list every single item that they have updated, which is amazing. It's very detailed, which rarely leaves you surprised of what exactly changed. But it does mean that there's just a lot of things. If there are certain sets or legendaries that you use and that you really care about, I do recommend that you check out the patch notes. And yeah, the Elder is not really wanting to come along, so we'll just take the amulet and move on. Because I did notice that they... normally in the itemization, they change some damage bonuses, or they change, maybe give you some extra defensive ability, things like that. Or in one of the larger previous patches, they removed certain effects that gave you armor penetration against enemies, because the calculations for that were completely foobarred in the engine. So I think they had to take it out just to prevent it from doing silly things. Well, in this case, especially now, because there's a lot of modifiers to skills with the monster infrequence and some of the mythical items as well. So some of the itemization changes also affect bonuses to skill points and the effects of some of the skills. So if you care about a specific set, and especially if you're making a specific build in order to use a specific set, double check the patch note, because you might otherwise end up very, very sad if you end up working for something and then not getting it. And I'm autopiloting here, and I should actually have gone to the previous waypoint. So let's correct that. Bad zombies. And I always give the amulet to the people. always, I don't think I've ever actually lied to the people. So this time I'm just gonna go along with the good thing. But I think one of these days, maybe on my next run, maybe I should just do an evil run. So just lie again to everybody, just be as rude as I can, go for the options that I never pick, go hostile with Barrelholm, things like that. And then just see if that is a more interesting way to play it. Or no, if it is an interesting way to play it. That's maybe a better way to phrase it. If interesting new experiences come out of that. That's maybe an even better way to rephrase it. So the journey continues, looking for the next camp. So those things like to charge in, that's always nice. So just shoot at you and then shoot a little bit. So the tether is kind of interesting because you can use it to just shear through some of the smaller enemies. And you can maintain up to 3 different tethers, which is something... Most of the time the enemies are dead before I can recast a second tether. So, interesting detail here. Yeah, see? Dead before I can cast it. But oh, for a brief period we did have 2 tethers. So an Inquisitor that focuses on the lightning tethers, would that be a Tethermancer? Does sound cool. A Tethermancer. I'm very tempted by the Ruin Shrine. So let's go to the Ruin Shrine and then we go back to kill some bugs, because I do like to kill some bugs. And a Frozen Heart, we have enough of those. And ooh, you Moss Shambler, you were trying to ambush me. That's sneaky. You know what? I'll just attack you back. Wonderful. Yep. Devotion points. So I believe we were working on the Scholar's Light, Physique, defensive ability, and a little bit of elemental resistance. So that's definitely helping a little bit with the resists. I mean, it's early in the game, our resists are kinda bad. Level 24, we're gonna get access to the Runestone. That's gonna help us fix some of the elemental resist and get a little early ether resistance. But yeah, I try to pick some items with some resists early in the game when possible, but most of the time it's not until around the Bug Queen. No, just once you are actually in Homestead already. It's not until that point where I start to put in a little bit more effort. Because no, usually by that time you're late 20s, maybe early 30s. Probably closer to late 20s. And on the one hand, though, that just gives you more options for the sockables, for the components. And especially once you do have a little bit of faction reputation, then you can get access to some decent basic resistance gear from the factions. Homestead has very nice boots, for example. The armor is low, but the resists are great. And then from the different factions you can piece some things together. And that's I think most of the early tiers are level 35. So no, that's like a pretty decent point. But as you noticed, I did try to at least put some components in my gear to make sure that I've got as many of the top row resistances covered to a certain degree. And so you always have some imbalances that the higher level you are and the more access to different components you have, the easier it is to fix. And especially once you start playing on Elite, especially later on Ultimate, you do get access to more augments that help you fix more resistances and give you even more flexibility in that regard. Ooh, it is nice when you got an enemy that is hanging back a little bit and you have some add-ons that do try to get close. Then the Stormbox Tether is just gonna roast the add-ons. I wonder how that's gonna be with the Queen, because there's a lot of add-ons there as well. So if we just make sure we keep maximum distance, we can do fun things there. Okay, so now we go back to where we were with the shrine. Let's see, anything good in here? A little bit of ether resistance, but our current one has 3 different resists, so no, that's not really great. Yeah, for the rest, it's just junk. Belts. A little bit of vitality resist, but yeah. Not all that great just yet. So let's keep it running. Attack the next waypoint. And I think from there we should have enough time to at least catch a troll. Do some troll slaying. And I think next episode is going to be a nice time to dive into Cronley's mine and actually go after Mr. Darius Cronley himself. Mornay sent me, we have a deal. We are gonna kill Forges and we will kill a troll. So we already had a brief glimpse at what we found, so might as well sell all the things. Bonus of vitality damage, nah, we don't deal that, so we can get rid of that. Okay, let's go hunting for trolls. Here, trolly troll. There you are. Rulgoth, the rampaging. Oh. How? My character's head hurts a little bit, I suspect, after the troll rampage. Yep, exactly. Nice thing about enemies with very overly telegraphed attacks is you can sidestep their attacks. And we gained another level, 23. Oh, not that one, that one. So, for now, let's just put another 2 points in and... Wait. Did we get Inquisitor Seal and not spend points on it? I think we ought to spend a point on it. Anything else we skipped? No, nothing, okay. So, and this level's point is for Inquisitor Seal. This is another defensive ability. Whereas the Word of Renewal is gonna give us an instant heal and some defensive bonuses and movement speed. And the upgrade gives us health and reduced crowd control. Inquisitor Seal seemed to be something that we place on the ground. And that is gonna protect us and damage enemies that go inside of it. So let's see if we take the Inquisitor Seal. And we plop it down. Okay. It's gonna stay up for quite a while. And enemies are taking a little bit of damage. Right. So now I'm taking damage, and it is not. If you put the shield down, enemy was not very impressed. I think, because if we just put this one down, then we're taking a lot less damage because of the damage absorption. Yeah. Okay. So let's have a bit of a better look, because this is actually one of the few skills that behaves the way I expected it to. So, inscribe a protective seal upon the ground that shields allies and rebukes foes that cross its border. The seal is not permanent, however, and will fade over time. It scales with player bonuses. So, it's a summon, plop it on the floor, we get the seal, lives for 12 seconds. It has a barrier ability, 3.8 meter radius, 55 damage absorption. with that, I'm assuming that's gonna be applying to every single hit that hits us, so it is great for protecting us. Health regeneration is increased by 15%, but it does not grant health regen by itself. We do need to provide that. And we get 5% elemental resistance. It also has a rebuke part, also 3.8 meter radius, so that's the same. It does a decent chunk of fire damage, and it does bonus damage to Ethereals, Chthonics, Ether, Corruptions, and Eldritch. And I'm assuming the percentage bonuses don't apply to us. It only applies to the damage it does to enemies. So this is very good against Ethereals and Chthonians, but not against beasts, for example, because it is it's meant to protect us against the supernatural. But putting it up does give you quite a bit of staying power. And Master of the Pits is not home. Too bad. Outlaws. I don't care about outlaws. Just because they're in cages doesn't mean they should get any sympathy. Given that we are only 20 minutes in, might as well finish this run by just checking out the Inquisitor Seal and hunting the, what you gonna call it, the forges. That's glowing eerily. Is there anything there? Something was lighting up. A corpse. That was free money. So can we cast a corpse at a... Okay, the seal we can cast it at a slight radius, but I clicked here, it only entered there. So this is the maximum radius. Oh, that is something else that is new in the 1.0.3 patch. And that is casting range. If you cast something out of range, your character is just gonna do a best effort to cast it without actually running towards the thing to cast it, and that is part of the patches for controller support. And I think I read something about Xbox support that they're going for. I don't have an Xbox, so I personally couldn't care less. In the past I did try Grim Dawn for a short bit with a Steam controller, and I think that was one of the few games that the Steam controller was actually decent to use with. For the rest, I prefer the Xbox controller, which I do have an Xbox controller. I prefer that one over the Steam controller. Steam controller is just, I don't know, for fighting games and things like that, it's just not accurate enough. But no, for Grim Dawn, if they're gonna go to consoles, it is a nice way to expand the market. I do, for example, enjoy playing Diablo 3 on the PlayStation. That is actually, it's nice. Especially with the controller, you have no direct control over your character. And that does make the gameplay feel much more visceral and direct. Whereas now if you're playing with a mouse, then first you have to move your pointer and then you have to click, and so it's more of an RTS. So it's a little more impersonal. Is that the best way to describe it? I guess that's the best way to describe it. Now you're a little bit more detached. That might be the better phrase to use there. Hello there. He got knocked down by the fire rune. If you're standing next to me, I might as well just put down the seal. Something I'll have to experiment with for a bit to see how useful the seal is. Because my initial idea for the build was to have a mobile build, and the Inquisitor Seal is definitely not something that is something you want to focus on if you want to be mobile. Because the Inquisitor Seal definitely encourages you to hunker down. But on the other hand, you can see it as more of a panic button. If there's an enemy you can't run from, or if there's a situation where it's just better to stand and fight, having access to the Inquisitor Seal is pretty useful. So we'll see how useful it is as a one-pointer. And there we are, mine entrance. Hello there. Come on. Got some great runes for you. Goodbye. There is something fun to it, to just watching them walk on the runes and then just explode all over the place. And there we are, Mr. Quaid. I have destroyed the forges. So next up, Moneybags Martin. And you, Eva. You have some injured people. Can I help? Is this enough royal jelly for you to make ointments? Wonderful. So you always get the recipe for the royal jelly balm, and you get a free sample, and it is pretty nice, especially for a build that might not have the most basic health regeneration inside of it. Now using something like the royal jelly balm or the upgraded versions, because there's actually 2 upgraded versions that grant you more health regen. They're pretty nice. Now they last for 450 seconds, which seems like an odd duration, because it's not a full number of minutes. Because it's actually 7.5 minutes. Let's see, 300 seconds is 5 minutes, and we got another 150 seconds. Yeah, that's 2.5 minutes. So it's 7.5 minutes. That's, I don't know, it feels odd. Usually you want numbers to be round, and this is just not round enough. Okay, we did get ourselves a new gun over here, an Howdah of the Slayer. Gives +1 to Veil of the Shadow, which is a Nightblade skill, so that is not useful for us. Small chance to deal bonus pierce damage, reduction to enemy health. Reduction to enemy health helps you against normal enemies. Bosses are mostly very highly resistant to it. But in the end, now even if we ignore the components, which you can do by holding control on your keyboard, then you see that we are still losing damage. So this is not an upgrade for us. Let's see, Mistwalker leggings, movement speed, lightning resist and ether resist. I think we have an upgrade. Yep, we have an upgrade. Wonderful. I do like it when we get upgrades. So I'll need to move the silk swatch, so might as well do that just to round things out here. Sometimes I do crafting, sometimes I don't do crafting. Some people really appreciate it when I do some crafting in the episodes. Other people really couldn't care less. It's the same with lore. Some folks really enjoy it. Other people don't really care about it. So I'll just from time to time I just do a little bit just to give you a little bit of an impression of what the crafting system is like, but I'm not gonna do it every single time. So in this case I just want to recover these and then just evaluate. Are they still good? Can we still benefit from the pierce resistance? We are at 66, so 14 out of 18% is going to be used, 4% is going to be overcapped, but at the bleeding we're at 33, so this is going to take us to 51, so that is still good, and that is wonderful. Now overcapping your resist is not too bad. On the other hand, if you have some items that you can put in instead and then benefits from resistances that are not overcapped, that is of course a better choice. We got quite a bit of fire resistance from this one. That is why we're overcapped over here. And yeah, there's some fire here as well. Anything else? Nearly 40 fire resist on Obsidian Seal. Yeah, that's gonna help max it out quite quickly. So normally it is nice if your elemental resists are balanced. Then instead of boosting individual elements, you can just boost all of your elemental resists and they will just go up at the same time. Anything over here? No, wrong damage types and bonus to pets, which we don't use. So no, that is easy to sell and make some money off of, which we can do here. Wonderful. Okay, there we are. We still look like a cowboy with a cowboy hat, so I'm very happy with that. So for now, I'm gonna thank you very much for watching and hope to see you again next time. Bye bye.